Hi. Just wanted to go over with you a few things from Chapter 9. Your project that you turned in last week, that actually was part of Chapter 9 also, but I wanted just to share some things with you, some of the highlights from Chapter 9. First of all, what we want to look at is moral development. You'll hear somebody say, oh, that person has no morals. Well, that's true, but in reality, children are not born with morals. That is something that's learned through time. As they get older, they do not know right from wrong. That's why we have to teach children and that we have to model behavior. For example, that 2-year-old who goes up and takes somebody's toy, they don't know that's the wrong thing to do. They're still learning that. Now, a 12-year-old that goes up and takes somebody's toy, now that's a whole different story. But with children, as far as their moral development, we have to set an example. We also have to set limits for them. And, we have to, make sure we're guiding them in the right way. So that's one thing about moral development. Now, in your PowerPoints, you looked at behaviors that are considered negative. And sometimes we have to look at that negative behavior is it really negative? Or is it really misbehavior? In your book defines several different types of negative behavior, and one is misbehavior. And that's sometimes it's just because it's inappropriate or it's troublesome, or sometimes it's just unsafe. And then we have problem behavior, and that's behavior that causes inconvenience for others. And then sometimes inappropriate behavior is just basically because the child's immature. So we have to look at, what type of behavior it is. And also we have to look at is the definition of misbehavior, is it adult-centered or is it child-centered? That's really important to remember. Is your definition of misbehavior adult-centered? Does it focus on your needs and desires? Like, for example, if the child's being silly and they are embarrassing you, and you say, oh, they're being bad, that's really your definition of misbehavior. If the action is wrong, it must be judged wrong because it infringes on the rights of the child or other children, it's unsafe, or it's unnecessary, damaging to the environment. So think about those three things again. It infringes on the rights of others, it's unsafe, and it's damaging to the environment. Not because it's bothersome to us as adult or we're in a bad mood. When we focus on misbehavior, we can't carry out our guidance task. So that's why, you've heard me say already, we have to guide children. We have to focus on what they're doing right, not what they're doing wrong. You have to remember, children live up to their expectations. If a child is constantly described as being bad or hyper or whatever, then the child's going to live up to that reputation. Also, too, sometimes adults try to shame children into being good. They label the child bad, naughty, rowdy, etc. And again, they live up to their expectation. Positive guidance means teaching children how to solve their problems rather than punishing children for having problems they cannot solve. So think about that again. Positive guidance means teaching children how to solve their problems rather than punishing children for problems that they cannot solve. We have to look at the child's ages and stages. Like, for example, a 2-year-old, who has a temper tantrum. This is actually age appropriate. This is appropriate for children this age. Toddlers don't have the vocabulary that we have to express their feelings. So, you know, they just reach their limit and they fall out. What I say as far as with temper tantrums, you know, if a child's having a temper tantrum, ignore it. You make sure there's not anything around them that, you know, they could kick and fall on them, but ignore it. That's the best thing to do, because as soon as you ignore it, it's only going to be a few seconds where the child's like, oh my gosh, they're not paying attention to me. So that's the best thing to do. When I've dealt with children with having temper tantrums before, what I do is I tell the child, when you calm down, I'll talk to you, and I walk away. And normally within a few seconds, they'd calm themselves down. So we have to look at things like that. Also, sometimes children just have bad days just like we do. You know, it's okay for adults to have bad days, but we don't expect children to have bad days. Well, hey, we all have bad days. And sometimes, you know, misbehavior is not really misbehavior. Sometimes children are just bored, and, you know, they're trying to be helpful, or they're clumsy, etc. You know, this behavior is not really misbehavior. It's just we may simply have unrealistic expectations as adults. So those are just some things to keep in mind. Another thing to keep in mind is temperament. Your chapter mentions temperament. This is not temper, this is temperament. So I want to show you pull over a slide real quick. And a child's temperament describes the way he or she approaches and reacts to the world. It's his or her personal style. We are born with our temperament. A temperament is something that we're born with. And what I normally tell teachers or us as adults is make sure that you know your own temperament, because then we can work with children who have a different temperament than us. So, like, for example, you know, you hear about babies being easy. So that means that, you know, the child, you know, is pretty happy. They go to bed at the same time. They eat at the same time. They're really adaptable. You know, they don't upset very easy. And so, you know, that's one type of temperament. Another type of temperament is an active or a feisty child. And that child is usually, you know, they're irregular in their sleeping patterns, their feeding patterns. They don't adjust to new situations very easily. They can be very fearful of new people and situations. You know, they're the type of child that walks into a room and, you know, or a noise is going on, and it all of a sudden it interrupts them. Think about yourself in that situation. If you're working somewhere and a noise is in the background, does it distract you or not? When you walk into a room, do you immediately notice the temperature in the room? That is all based on your temperament. Also, you know, some children, I didn't mean to go. Some children, as far as, you know, their reactions to things are very intense. You know, you have that child that cries and cries and cries, and then you might have that child that just kind of whimpers. That is temperament. Also, children are slow to warm up or cautious. You know, these are things, you know, where the child is, you know, they're just slow to warm up. Think about you when you go to a new situation. Do you walk in immediately, oh, hey, everybody, how y'all doing? Or do you just kind of stand back and feel the crowd? That is all based on your temperament. So what I want you to work on is making sure that you take note of your own temperament, because once you do that, it helps you in your relationships with other people in your life. You know, not only your children, but your significant other, your parents, your friends, etc. We all have different temperaments, and we were all born with different temperaments. Okay, so let me get back over here. Oh, this is what all right, so just some things to keep in mind. Underlying causes of problem behavior, just inappropriate expectation. Expecting a 2-year-old to act like a 12-year-old. You know, a 3-year-old is not going to sit down for 30 minutes. That's just not their age. Misunderstanding expectations. Just immature self-control. Silly playfulness. Sometimes, one child does it, the whole group does it. Keep in mind the reasons for problem behavior. Once you understand the reasons for that behavior, then you can learn to deal with it with the child and help the child go through it and get over it and come through it. Okay, thanks.